He said this prison is built on bodies, that there's inmates buried in the woods that nobody knows about. The man told me that out of his mouth. You know, I'm not ever told that on video. The man told me.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to have a very special guest here today who's going to spill all of the dirt or some of the dirt on inside of prison. So this is our dear friend, Bryan. I will link Bryan's channel below. He's a very popular YouTube channel. But do you want to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll talk about a really juicy topic for you guys.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Ro, it's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for letting me come on your channel. My name is Bryan Bruton. I've done 11 years in prison. Originally, I was sentenced to 10 years. I had a manslaughter charge. During doing my time, I got kind of full of myself and decided to what all inmates fantasize about, escape from prison. Pulled it off, kind of. I got out. I was gone for a day, got caught. They added more time on. In the end, I ended up doing 11 years straight in prison. This was all in Florida, by the way.
Awesome. Okay, so Bryan and I were talking about what we wanted to make this video about. And we were talking about that crazy challenge, the Feeling Cute challenge. And Bryan has a lot of experience with kind of the corruption of the guards and what happens inside. So we thought that would be a really good topic to talk about. So Bryan, tell us, dish the dirt. It's kind of like your channel today, whatever you want to talk about.
So, you know, I seen the video that you done about the Feeling Cute. So basically it was where a bunch of correction officers, even law enforcement, were posting pictures and sayings of, you know, today I'm going to go spray some inmates, or today I'm going to do this to an inmate, hashtag feeling cute. And, you know, it seems like probably to a lot of people that would see a post like that, you know, they're just cutting up. They're just making a joke. Well, look, every one of those posts that I seen you put in the video, Ro, every one of those, and if anybody goes online and looks up the Feeling Cute done by correctional officers, all of the things that they say that, oh, I'm feeling cute, I'm going to go spray some inmates today, they look for a reason to do that. Not saying that all of them, not 100%, but there is a good overwhelming majority that follow the good old boy system, that fall into line because, you know, primarily it's run by a lot of old families. The prison system is run by a lot of old families that have a lot of power, and there's a lot of corruption. And when the new people come in that don't want to partake in the good old boy things, the beatings, the not stabbings, but the killings, and just abusing people, locking people in the showers and turning the hot water on during the summertime and just letting them sit in there and steam and even cook. I mean, that's even happened in Florida where they actually turned the hot water on and burned a man to death. And when they came in there, so they put him in there as like a disciplinary reason. And they actually had a hole drilled into the wall to where just nothing but hot boiling water would shoot through the wall into the shower area. And they would just turn it on and the room would fill up with steam. And apparently what happened in this situation was they had a man locked in there in the shower, turned on the hot water. It was filling up with steam. The water apparently started filling up in the drain and it started splashing on the guy. He's getting burned. You know, you know, I wasn't there, but I can just imagine, you know, those showers are small. The guy was probably trying to dance around, trying to get away from the hot water. The more you scream, the more you make noise, the longer they're just going to run it. So the end result of that was the guy ends up passing out. He falls down on top of the drain. So if water has nowhere to drain because the man's laying on it, now all this water is just accumulating in the shower. When they come to get this man out of the shower, his skin was burned off. I mean, it was just dripping off of him. The man laid there and cooked to death in a shower. You know, granted, there's things that guys do that are in prison. You know, there's some hard heads, there's knuckleheads in there that are going around causing problems. You know, there's when I say guys in prison, I'm talking about prisoners that, you know, maybe they go around starting fights, or they're robbing people, beating people up, even raping people. You know, in those situations, yeah, they deserve more disciplinary type of situations where they get put into confinement. But there's just situations like, for an example, one day while I was in the dorm, I wanted to go out and use the telephone. And the officer was playing his little game. This is like games that correctional officers like to play. The man seen me, clearly seen me. We made eye contact. He knew that I was waiting to come out to use a telephone. And it was getting late to the point that lockdown was going to be coming. I wasn't going to be able to use the phone. And, you know, it was getting on my nerves, but I wasn't giving in to his game that he was playing. And other people in the dorm seeing what was going on, and another guy came up and he banged on the glass really hard. I think he may have even kicked on it, but either way, he banged on the glass, and this particular guard doesn't like it when people bang on the glass. Granted, he knows you're standing here, been here for 15, 20, 30 minutes waiting to use the phone. He knows that time is about to run out and you're not going to be able to use the phone. And he does that just to try to get people to bang on the glass. So when that happened, he calls me out into the vestibule and the little area between the dorm and the correctional officer station. And he's asking me, why are you banging on the glass? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I didn't bang on the glass. However, I'm not going to tell him this other guy that did. So I get sent to confinement for that. Just for something I didn't do. And this man initiated it. He knew somebody's going to eventually bang on the glass. He probably came to work that day, bad attitude, something happened at home, or maybe he's just miserable. Nevertheless, he come to work knowing that he was going to do something to aggravate some people, and he's going to send somebody to confinement. I just so happened to be one of those people that day. So my point is that, you know, there are minor things like somebody banging on a glass. Granted, I didn't do it and I went to jail for it, but those are the type of things that sometimes, you know, in this situation where I was talking about the man that got put in the shower, you know, it could have been something as minor as banging on the glass, or, you know, they tell him, hey, go to your room, and he didn't go quick enough. So they're like, all right, we're going to put you in this hot shower. And they ended up cooking the man to death. And that's just one example in Florida. I was at a place called Lake Butler. It was a North Florida reception center, but most people know it as Lake Butler. At that prison, there's the main unit, which is like the hospital intake and reception. Then you have the Wild Wild West, which is the West unit, and then you have like a work camp. But it's all on one compound. And what I called my boss, he worked in the maintenance department. He had been there for like 38 years working in there. All his family worked in there, his kids, his grandchildren. It was just like a family thing from person to person. And he told me one day, he said, this prison is built on bodies, that there's inmates buried in the woods that nobody knows about. The man told me that out of his mouth. You know, I've not ever told that on video. The man told me, his name was Mr. Griffiths. He told me that there are people buried in these woods, inmates, that nobody knows about. And listen, this guy, when he tells you something, he knows everything that's going on. He is a guy that is like, him and his family are well instituted into all the prison, you know, everything that's going on. When he says something, you can believe one thing is true. So with that, what I'm saying is the guards play a ton of games with people. Somebody flying by my head. The guards play a ton of games, and they do it. It's kind of like if you have a dog in a cage. You know, I hate to compare people or guys in prison to a dog in a cage, but just say you lock a dog in a cage. It might not even be a violent or vicious dog. But if you sit there and poke it and poke it and poke it over and over and aggravate that dog for no reason, if you keep poking him with a stick, eventually he's going to growl. Maybe he'll even snap at you, you know, and that's kind of like what the correction officers do to guys that are in prison. You got these guys that are in a cage and they just constantly poke and prod, you know, with the hopes that somebody's going to say something, you know, or they're going to do something so that they can bring their little gang, their Ninja Turtles, because they come dressed up in Ninja Turtle suits when something big pops off. And, you know, it's like they just feed off of that. They feed off of hurting people or getting some, you know, type of event to pop off to where they can come, you know, and beat people up or take all their property and destroy the dorm that they live in.
Oh, that's terrible. So question, majority of people that watch my videos are the outside half of a prison relationship or their family member. So we fear a lot of times bringing any of this up because of retaliation. Like, should we? What do you think from that perspective? Should we get involved? Should we just stay quiet? Will it cause more problems?
Oh, good question. That's actually a really good question. So if you have a loved one, husband, wife, whatever it is, child that's in prison, and they're at a prison where the guards are doing things constantly. They're taking people's property, they're taking their canteen, and I mean, they will literally just come and take your canteen away from you and give it to someone else. Hoping that you go approach that person or even try to do something back to the guard so that they can escalate the matter. But if you have a loved one that's in prison in that type of situation where the guards are constantly just poking and prodding, you know, I would say I went to 10 different prisons during my time all around Florida. And at those prisons, for somebody that's coming to visit and they know something is going on, and then they turn around and make a phone call to either the higher up, even the warden on the compound, or even go above that and go to the Secretary of State in Florida, which is the head person of DOC. When they do that and they say, hey, look, this person is related to me, and they give them a name, and they say, I'm so and so's husband or wife, and my husband or wife is telling me that the guards are doing this. Typically, that's a dangerous situation.
Mm.
From my experience in Florida, in that situation, if you as an outsider know that something is going on, it's always best to report it anonymously if you're going to do that. Because, you a lot of people are going to be like, well, you're calling the warden or you're calling the head person of DOC. One thing you got to realize is they all work together. They work together. They police each other. They got each other's back, and they're not trying to take each other down. Just because you call and say, hey, my husband or boyfriend or brother or cousin or uncle got beat the other day, but for no reason. You know, they are never trying to take each other down. There are some, if you find the right one that is going to stand up and is going to say, hey, whatever's going on is wrong, or they're going to try to prevent it, or they'll even report it. But 9 times out of 10 in Florida, forget about it. You got to do it anonymously if you're going to try to really get something done. I mean, I guess if you had like a big enough group with a loud enough voice and enough people saying, hey, look, we're not going to stand it. We're not going to tolerate this. Something has to change. But, if you get a group like that and you have people that are willing to stand up, you got to keep at it. You can't just push a little bit and give up, because in the end, it'll make it worse on the person that's on the inside.
And what about from the opposite end? Like, let's say I called and reported something and it got back to the people on the inside that your loved one reported something. Is that considered dry snitching, or are they okay with that because it's kind of for the greater good?
That's a difficult one right there. that it just depends. So it depends on what type of prison they're in, what type of inmates, prisoners are around them. In Florida, you have over 100 prisons, and that's all different environments. That's different calibers of inmate. If you're at one where it's real hardcore, and every little thing, is looked at as snitching, then, it won't fly too well. But if you're at one of the softer ones, they have, I think it's called like I've been out for 4.5 years, so I'm not fluent on all the terminology anymore. However, they have faith-based camps. Faith-based is, whatever type of religion it is that you're practicing, you go to this camp to practice your faith. And typically those are going to be softer, more laid back. Guys are all trying to do the right thing. They're telling you those. The inmates are even telling each other, and it's accepted. So it really depends on what type of place they're at. If they're at a place, like for example, I was at Taylor CI, where every day the life flight helicopter was landing to take inmates off the compound. Every day people were getting stabbed or cut, beaten, jumped, every single day. I mean, to the point while I was there, I remember one day the warden walked around the dorm. He had everybody locked down, and he came in and he's like, look, if y'all keep landing the helicopter on here, I'm going to keep y'all locked down. I would not let y'all out of the cell. Now, could he do that? No, he couldn't just turn an open general population compound into complete lockdown. But, he came around making a threat because that type of thing was going on every day. So at that type of institution, You definitely don't want to be telling on things, because if word gets back, hey, buddy's got his people telling on XYZ, maybe he's telling on an officer, and maybe this officer is actually bringing in contraband to inmates. And now this guy had his people call and tell on the guy. That could be big problems. So it really depends on what type of institution and your people are at, as far as if you want to report anything or not.
That's so helpful for me too, because I love having people that have been in that position on my channel. I say stuff because I have a ton of experience. My husband's been incarcerated for 20 years almost. I've never been arrested. So I know it through doing this for so long. But I had this girl the other day or a couple months ago actually, but she was calling every 5 minutes. He was brand new. I guess they were just trying to feel him out, however that goes in there. And she was calling for everything. She wasn't even telling him she was calling, and he didn't know she shouldn't be calling. And I had to have a conversation with her, like, look, honey, you probably don't want to do that, and here's why. And so a lot of people don't believe me because I've never been there. So it's so nice to have those answers coming from you. And so another question, were you going to respond to that?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
You're absolutely correct. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so because there's just that natural progression of them just getting, from the things that I've heard and what I've seen and the shows that I've watched, of them just kind of getting acclimated, for lack of a better word, tested maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what we were talking about earlier was I read this article recently and honestly didn't read the whole thing, but it was about how prison guards there's their corruption and they do what we were talking about earlier. And then there's also, they expect inmates to take care of certain situations and have the facility run smoothly. And Adam, my husband, has told me about this a lot. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. That definitely happens, outside of the games that like correctional officers like to play, the one-on-one thing where they come and they look for a reason to shake people down or take their property. I mean, for example, in Florida, you had to be clean shaven every day. So if you leave out of the dorm, you're going to breakfast at 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30, whatever time your dorm went, and you're headed down the sidewalk, you're dressed properly. You forgot to shave that morning and you have just a little bit of hair on your face. They'll pull you over. When I say pull over, they're like, hey, so-and-so or inmate or whatever they call you, come here. And you might just have a little bit of stubble on your face. They say, go back to the dorm. You're not having breakfast. And you literally don't get a chance to eat, and it's like in that situation, okay, you knew you were supposed to shave, but what is the harm in the officer saying, hey, go back to the dorm, shave your face, and then you can go to chow? And just when you're waking up to, you're already in prison. You're in an extremely negative environment. You don't like being there. Everybody wants to be out of prison. The majority of people that I know wouldn't even say, yeah, I'm okay with being in prison. So it's an overwhelming thing every single day when you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm still in prison. And then first thing, as soon as you go out the dorm, you're getting harassed because you didn't shave that morning. So that just starts off a bad day for a lot of people. And that's, it's a minor thing, but when you're not getting good food, and then you have to miss a meal because this officer wants to start screwing with people at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's just it's a type of game that they like to play in there. And there's just like infinite amount of games that they play. I mean, there could be somebody walking down the sidewalk at some camps where they say no talking when you're going from place to place. And they'll hear somebody talking and they'll just pick a random person out. And they'll either have you go back to the dorm, you can't eat, or they'll have you cleaning the compound all day. They tell you, go pick up a butt can and go pick up trash all day. When I say a butt can, it used to be a cigarette butt can. They don't allow smoking anymore in Florida, but they still call them butt cans. Or they tell you sweep the sun off of the sidewalk. How do you do that? You sweep it until it gets dark. So, they have a bunch of games that they play directly with inmates. But they also will play the type of game where, like you were talking about, where, they want something, they don't like a certain person. Or I'm gonna give you an example. There are guards that they might be bringing in contraband. They can end up making potentially thousands of dollars per week, bringing in cell phones or what they call K2 or spice. Basically just any type of contraband that's people went on the inside, right? And now another guard that works at the same compound is bringing contraband in to another inmate, one that this guard doesn't like. So it's kind of like a rival thing. Now, this group over here is taking money away from this original guy, and he'll actually put a hit out on another inmate. So he'll get one inmate and say, hey, look, I need you to go take out this guy over here, or beat this guy up, or do something, or set him up, put a knife in his property, put a knife in his room so that he goes to confinement. And, you know, they call that handling a situation on the compound. And that does happen. It happens frequently. As an example, I got bugs flying around out here by my face. As an example, I was in the canteen line one day, and as a buddy of mine, him and I were in line, and this place, you never wanted to go anywhere alone because it was just a wild, dangerous place. So a buddy of mine and I, we were standing in line, and we heard some commotion going on over beside us. And it was a type of commotion where you're like, oh, all right, what's going on? Let me check my surroundings. And when we look over there, there is like a group of guys just attacking this other guy, trying to stab him, jump on him, hit him. And in between where we were standing at in the line and where this guy was getting attacked, there was a correctional officer. So we see him look over at what's going on, and he turned his head and just took off and went the other way. Like, what the heck just happened here? Come to find out, I've actually mentioned that on one of my other videos, but what I didn't mention is that the officer that headed the other way, the reason he did was he actually put the hit out on the guy that they were attacking. Believe it or not. I mean, these type of things happen every single day.
Oh, that is so scary. I know Adam says it to me all the time. He's like, they expect us, like it's literally expected. And he'll be like, no.
You know, or let me just touch on some more of those. You know, I mentioned like in Florida, if you're not clean shaven, they'll turn you around and say, hey, you can't eat. If you're in the chow hall and they hear somebody talking, they'll tell you, hey, dump your tray and get out of here. And you're like, I wasn't eating. Now, if you say something back, you run the risk of actually getting jumped on, and you weren't even the one talking. So another one that they'll come and just like a whole big squad will come, and they will just take over the entire dorm and do a shakedown. You know, they start hollering, coming in, screaming, everybody get against the wall. And they just tear the dorm to pieces. Well, you know, you got guys in there that everything that they own, everything that matters to them in life is inside of a box, what they call their locker, their storage area, right? So, you know, depending on where you're at, it might be just a little bitty drawer, it might be a box, but all of your pictures, all of your legal mail, you might have a letter from a loved one that died that you can never replace that letter. Or maybe you've got pictures of family members that you will never be able to get a picture of this family member again. Extremely sentimental things. And that might not sound like a big thing, but when you talk about guys that are doing 20 years, 30, 50 years, life sentences, they're never going home. And this one picture means the entire world to them. And officers come in and they know that all of this stuff that these guys have in their lockers are things that are really important to them. Like I said, you're keeping people inside of a cage 24 hours a day. There's no take a break and go home for the weekend. You're locked inside of this cage with only a few things to keep that are sentimental. And they come in and they do this shakedown, and they would literally, I've seen it happen. So I've had it happen where they throw all your property on the floor and they walk all over it. They bend your papers up, they tear your stuff up, they throw your stuff in the toilet. They'll take your canteen, your food items, any of your like unopened stuff, whether it's like a rack of cookies or a tuna fish, and they'll actually take it. So when they get done, they'll throw everything out in the middle of the dorm, like onto a blanket or into a trash can. And when they get done, they have their what they call runaround or orderlies, guys that work with the shakedown crew, which is an inmates, right? So they'll have them collect everything and take it out of there. Well, anything that they're like taking in a shakedown that you're not allowed to have, they're supposed to get rid of it. But what they will do is take it and they let their runarounds go through all of it. So now you've lost your canteen or some pictures, even shoes. I've seen them take people's clothes, stuff that you have to buy, like your own tennis shoes. I've seen them take that. You know, Like in Florida, you're not supposed to have, you're only allowed to have one pair of tennis shoes. So maybe you bought an extra pair from some guy that was going home. You know, just a little minor things. It's not like because you have two pair of tennis shoes, you're going to mount this great escape or anything. You know, you just want an extra pair of tennis shoes. Maybe you want to keep a clean pair for going to visit and another pair to go out to the rec yard. And they come in and do a shakedown and you got two pair of shoes. So they take your good pair. They would never take the raggedy pair. They're going to take your good pair. And so because that's contraband, you know, they're supposed to get rid of it, but they go and give it to another inmate who now their property orderly is he's either going to come back and try to sell you your own stuff, or he's going to go sell it somewhere else on the compound. And all of that just creates tension. It creates animosity. It creates anger. I mean, you got guys that are sitting there every day that are just like stewing, pissed off because they're being poked and prodded on the daily by just rogue people that, you know, they come here and it's kind of like they've joined a gang. And now they're working inside this closed facility that there's nobody out from the outside that's going to come in and say, hey, wait, what are you doing? You can't do this to these people. So they're inside this closed facility where they're being backed by all of their superiors all the way up the line. So when they come and they know that they can beat people, they can take their property, they can take their canteen, they can destroy their stuff, they can even kill people and get away with it. You know, it's kind of like a pit bull. You know, they say when it tastes blood, like when it's for fighting, when it tastes blood, that's it. It just wants to kill everything that it possibly can. And a lot of these guys are that same way when they know they can come to work and jump on people and beat people and take things. It's like it amps them up, you know, and they know that there's going to be no repercussions behind it.
Oh, it's so
Crazy.
scary. Yeah. And the property thing, I mean, these stories are by the millions, but Adam was telling me one day they just started walking around and they were saying they didn't make a rule. They didn't tell anybody this was a new rule, but if you had property that didn't fit inside of your locker, they just started locking guys up.
Yep.
Everybody has property that doesn't fit in their locker. Nobody told them they couldn't. It's just ridiculous. And he says all the time, touching on what you just said, he's like, if the public actually knew what happened in here, they would go nuts. He said, but they never will because of what you just said. It's all good cop, bad cop. And they try to promote public safety and security and all of that stuff, but it's a shit show in there. It's scary.
They lie, and I've seen it. They lie from the bottom all the way to the top. You know, right now, if you go on Florida DOC, there's a way that you can look up all the incident reports. And every incident report that you look up always says that it was an inmate that did this or did that. It's because they lie all the way up, all the way to the top. The people, free world people that have not been in that environment, they have absolutely no understanding. Just me telling you this doesn't even put it into perspective at all. It doesn't even touch it semi. I mean, I still talk to guys. All the guys that I made friends with while I was locked up are doing 50 years, 20, 100 years, life sentences. All of them are doing a lot of time. And when I talk to them, they're telling me it's getting worse by the day. And people are just unaware of it. I mean, granted, a lot of people tell their family and loved ones, but the vast majority of the people in the public have absolutely no idea how brutal the prisons are. And I mean, it's just absolutely, to be honest, it's heartbreaking. You know,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah. And I know you said earlier that you don't want to just talk about prison stuff, and that's awesome. And I'm so looking forward to those business videos. That was me on your live that day. Are you going to do business stuff? Because I don't really know anything much about business, but also the fact that you talk about this, and there are so many YouTube channels that are bringing this to light. Somebody just texted me today and she was like, you know, the fact that all of these voices are out there, I feel like eventually there's going to be a big shift, because a lot of people that watch YouTube are millennials and they're the next generation of people that are coming up. So hopefully, I mean, there's channels with hundreds of thousands and millions of viewers watching these prison channels. When I started in the end of 2011, there was nobody that I was aware of out there. Most of the people with these huge numbers were still inside jail. So this is so, I think, helpful. I know I'm so old, but this is so helpful hopefully for changing all of that and for outing the corruption, because I can't talk about a lot of the stuff that happens, like we talked about, because my husband's still inside, and he's still inside for a really long time until we get that fixed. So the fact that you guys are out and you can is super helpful. And I'm still looking forward to other content, of course, but I think it's really going to help.
Yeah, if people don't continue to tell, like there was another channel that is run by a correctional officer, and the guy actually made a video and said that the prison channels that are on YouTube are a danger, and that the people watching his channel need to advocate to get them shut down. Like, are you kidding? So he said that everything that people are telling, that they're teaching people how to manipulate the system, and that we are a danger to society by telling everybody, the things that we're telling. Look, any of the stuff that I tell, like as far as like guys, how they're getting cell phones in, or any, that's manipulating the system, they already know about it. They know every single way that the contraband is coming in. But what they don't like is the fact that we are exposing their corruption all the way from the bottom to the top.
Yeah, it's a threat to their society. Like you were saying before, they're a little gang of people.
Absolutely. It's exactly what they are. I mean, if you've ever been in it, if anybody watching has ever been in a neighborhood that's run by gangs, it's the exact same thing on the inside. They're run by a gang of people, but there's no repercussions. On the streets, there's repercussions. People are getting locked up. As another example, while I was at Lake Butler, it's crazy because Lake Butler can be wild in so many ways, but your primary concern while doing time at Lake Butler are the correctional officers, running into something with them, because they've killed so many people at this place. And anybody that's gone through Florida and has done time there will tell you, this place, you do not want to get caught up at Lake Butler. So I remember one day they were calling chow, and like everybody ran to the window in the dorm and was looking out the window. And I'm sorry, they called medication. They call medication before they call chow. So depending on what type of medication you're on, you go to the window and get your medicine, and then you go to chow. Well, apparently the story that I seen what was happening, and then I heard the story later. This guy at Lake Butler, you have to walk on one side of the sidewalk. Everybody's got to be in line, and they're pretty serious about it. Don't get in the grass. Don't step out of line. Well, this kid, when I say kid, he was a young guy. He was walking down the opposite side of the sidewalk. So they see him and they're like, hey, dumbass, come here. So the kid's like, who are you calling a dumbass? And they're like, he was a little kid too. Again, when I say kid, I mean, he's like early 20s probably. They're like, you come here. So he starts heading over to them, and he was a young black kid. Lake Butler is notorious backwood racist rednecks. I mean, everybody knows what it is. Anybody that knows about Lake Butler knows that's exactly what it is. So the kid is coming over there to them, and as soon as he got near them, he knew something was about to go down, in my opinion. I wasn't out there. I was just looking out the window, but he immediately started attacking the guys, started fighting with them. And he was a little guy, and these guys that were on this shift were all big guys, big young guys. And, they're trying to subdue him. They're trying to get him down, and eventually when they get him down, they're going to beat him. But he's taken on multiple guys. This kid was trained very well. I mean, he's backing these dudes up, actually beating these guys. And eventually, so this guy, he's fighting with these officers, he's backing them up, and eventually they get around him and they start backing him up. And as he's like backing up, fighting with them, he trips in a ditch. And when he trips, they just pile on top of this guy, and they're beating him. I mean, just beating him relentlessly. I mean, granted, he should have never attacked some officers, right? But now they've got him down. They beat him. They've handcuffed him. The entire way, when they stood this guy up and they walked him to medical, they beat this guy. We're looking out the window watching this happen. They're all taking turns just hitting him. I'm not hitting him in the ribs or in the stomach or in the chest or arms. They're hitting this guy in the face, in the head. They're just putting a beating on this guy all the way until we couldn't see him go through. Like, he went through a gate and then we couldn't see him anymore. They took him to medical. I was what they call a permanent at Lake Butler. So Lake Butler is a reception center. So people go through there all the time. But I was a permanent at Lake Butler, and one of my friends worked in medical that was a permanent as well. And later on, he told me they called him to medical to come and clean up. He said there was so much, they took the guy in the bathroom and just beat him and beat him and beat him. He said there was so much blood that it was on the ceiling in the bathroom. And he was the one that had to clean it. So, I mean, he was able to see it. It's everywhere inside here. They beat this man and beat him. So they ended up having to take him to the hospital, and he died. He died. And the entire group of guys that beat this kid to death, nothing happened to him. Nothing. Only, well, one of them, when he came to work, he had two black eyes where the kid actually got him. But again, I don't condone, any type of uprising where inmates are just beating guards. I'm not saying that's a great idea whatsoever. I don't condone it. I don't think you should do it at all. But once they had this man down, he's subdued. Okay, maybe you just beat him for a minute or hit him a few extra times, because that's just what guys are going to do in any situation. But to keep beating him until he dies, and they got in absolutely no trouble. They didn't get taken out of work. They didn't get put on a different shift. No charges were filed. Nothing. And the man died.
And this is on the more common side, right? I mean, throughout U.S. prisons, not just Florida.
Yeah, no, it happens everywhere. I can only speak on like my experiences in Florida, but this is a nationwide problem. And there's a lot of people that are on YouTube now that are telling their stories from all over the country. And it's a nationwide occurrence. Some states are going to be a little bit more violent, a little bit more wild than others. And then you have your three big states, California, Texas, and Florida, that house the most people. They put the most people in prison. But yeah, it happens everywhere. And it's a major problem. You got another thing you got to look at too is, in this country, we only have 1/25. So if you take the world's population and break it into pieces, we only have 1/25 of the world's population in America. Yet if you take all the world's prison population, we have 1/5 of the world's prison population in America.
Wow.
I mean, it's insane. It's crazy. I mean, we are just imprisoning people. I knew a guy that was doing a 5-year sentence for driving on a suspended license. Granted, he's a habitual offender. I'm not saying that, hey, go out there and drive on a suspended license and nothing should happen. If that's a requirement, you got to have a license to drive, then, okay, punish a guy. But 5 years in prison, I'm not talking about he got DUI or a manslaughter charge, driving and he ran somebody over. He was a habitual offender for driving on license. That's crazy.
Yes, disgusting, especially, I mean, what hits close to my heart are mandatory minimum sentences. I work with an organization who it's specifically for 924C, the firearm statute my husband's sentenced under, and it's just crazy. They just stack them on and on and on, and they don't have to even charge these 924Cs. They use them as a weapon. They kind of dangle it to make people cooperate, to fit into their little mold. So aside from Adam, who got 213 years for 9 robberies where nobody was hurt, and nobody was physically hurt. I have to make sure I'm very clear about that, because there's a lot of emotional pain that goes, and people have put me in my place, and I get it. And he deserves to do a lot of time. But there's also a man that they represent with this organization that has 750 years because of firearms crimes. And again, very serious, but the gun wasn't even used. And there are people that get out for other things. So it's just across the board. It's the mass incarceration problem. It's unjust. And they're just trying to lock people up and line their pockets is what I get from it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And the mass incarceration that we have in this country is, I mean, people don't realize it, because so you have people out here in the free world that, they're in their daily grind. They get up, they go to work, they come home, they got to take care of their family. And what a lot of people don't realize is this huge prison system that has encompassed our entire country, that is housing countless people over minor crimes. I mean, nonviolent drug offender crimes where people are doing just endless years. And then how do you sentence somebody to 200 plus years? It doesn't make sense. I mean, what are you saying? You're going to sentence me. I'm going to do my time. I'm going to die. You're going to dig me back up, make me do more time. Why? What are you talking about? You just gave me 200 and something years. It doesn't even make sense. And it's out of control. And then here's another big issue that I have is prosecutors, that they are prosecuting people. Obviously we need a judicial system. We need a justice system in this country, but we need one that's just, not a broken one, which is what we currently have. But you have these prosecutors that are getting away with it on the daily, where they're prosecuting people and they know full well that this man is innocent or isn't guilty of what they're actually prosecuting. Okay, the guy's guilty of something, but he's not guilty of what they're prosecuting him for. And this really touched home for me while I was at FSP, Florida State Prison. I was in there in confinement for 2.5 years in a single man cell. And at one point, when I could look out my back window in my cell, there was like these little pinholes in a screen, and you could look and you could see like a silhouette of another guy and another wing across the way. That whole wing was death row. And these guys are sitting in these cells waiting to be put to death. Now, there are some guys over there that really, truly did some heinous crimes. And probably the majority of people that are in prison are guilty of something. But it's been proven, we've all seen it happen, where a man's been sitting on death row for 30 years and come to find out DNA proves he's totally innocent, or DNA proves that he's innocent. And then when they start digging into the case, they see that the prosecutor withheld some information that actually proved this man's innocence. And when that happens, the prosecutors they have immunity. They're not being held liable for it. So it's like they're able to take a person, their entire life, ruin their life. We get one life to live. One, that's it. And they take and put these people in prison, and they know they're either one, totally innocent, or not guilty of what they're prosecuting them for. And so what? Who do they answer to? And when it comes out, they're not being held liable for it. That's a horrible system.
Yeah, it is. And my only consolation, otherwise I'd be in a corner probably crying every day, is that when Adam first started, he went in 2000, and there wasn't really anybody out here fighting for us. But now, as time has progressed, people are really hopping on. So organizations like Families Against Mandatory Minimums have come out, and a whole bunch of different organizations, as well as celebrities, have hopped on this whole Cut 50 bandwagon. And they're really trying to bring light to the fact that the criminal justice system is so broken and it needs reform. We have all of the lifers for marijuana, and now they're legalizing marijuana. So things just aren't fitting anymore.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. And there's definitely a lot more awareness becoming, the people are becoming more aware. There is a lot of people that are totally unaware, but
Yeah.
by doing videos like this and then having bigger people speak up, like Kim Kardashian and some other famous people that have a lot of celebrity status, or a lot of, people are watching them on social media. Social media is like the biggest thing out now. I mean, more people are watching social media than are sitting down watching TV. And now that people are actually speaking up about it, hopefully that will create a change in the tide eventually. The more and more people that speak up and say, hey, wait, this is wrong. What are you doing? We can't stand for this any longer. Hopefully, people keep pushing for it, and there is some change that comes.
Yeah, absolutely. Bryan, I don't want to keep you too long. I'm so grateful that you were here. I think you're amazing. What else? What's the last thing? What do you want to leave 20,000 prison wives with? What's the message for all of us?
Oh, prison wives? Yeah. So I thought you were going to ask me something else.
What did you think I was going to ask you?
Just what were my last words? But for prison wives, if you have somebody that's locked up, you're going to go through roller coasters of emotions. You're going to be at home, where somebody is supposed to be, your significant other is supposed to be there with you. You're going to go through times where you feel completely alone. You're going to be feeling like, why aren't you here? Why'd you let me down? And I guarantee you, if you have a person that's locked up and you're sticking with them, it's because, they've got a lot of good in them, but guys get caught up. People get caught up. People make mistakes. And if you truly love that person, if you value that person, if you believe in that person, just don't give up on them. They're going to go through difficult times on the inside. They're going to call home and be a jerk, as any other guy does. If you are watching this and you have a guy that's in prison, I can't speak for the women, but I know guys, they're, they're going to go through difficult times. They're going to go through times where they're just like, I can't take this anymore. I'm tired of being in here. Why didn't you answer the phone at X time? Or what were you doing? Where were you at this weekend? So many things are running through their head, and they're dealing with so many different type of pressures. I'm not saying deal with abuse from somebody that's locked up, but if you love them, know that it's going to be a roller coaster ride. And the biggest thing that you can do is continue to support them, continue to let them know that you love them. And if they ask, hey, can you send me some pictures? Will you write me a letter? They write you a letter and they want you to respond. If you say you're going to do it, then just do it. One of the biggest things that really used to get to me was if you don't want to write me, or if you don't want to come and see me, if you can't do whatever it is that I'm asking, just say, hey, I can't do it, or I don't want to do it, or I'm not going to do it. But so if anybody's ever watched the movie Blow, toward the end of it, Johnny Depp is like walking around the rec field, and he's talking to his daughter. He thinks he's there with him. And it's like he's hallucinating. He's like kind of going crazy, right? And I remember I would always think about that because my child was growing up. So whenever I got locked up, my kid was 9 years old. When I came home, she was 21. She even had a kid. She had gotten married. So she pretty much grew up while I was in prison, which was an extremely heartbreaking situation. But her mother would tell me, she would say, we're going to come and see you this weekend. So all week, I'm like, all right, cool. I get to see my kid. This is great. Saturday comes. So in Florida, you get a Saturday and a Sunday visits. I try not to ever be late to anything. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Like I have an internal clock. I can wake up at any time that I want. So I already know they're coming to visit. I'm getting up early. I'm going to eat. I'm going to get clean. I'm going to get my clothes ready. I'm doing all types of things knowing that they're not going to be here if they do come until like 11 o'clock. They're never going to get there early, but so what? I never give up hope. I'm always hoping maybe they will come early this time. But one of the biggest things it just used to really get to me was I would spend hours waiting, looking, like if I was at a institution where I could see the parking lot. Every little car that came, I'm looking, is that them? Is that them? Every time the microphone comes on, I'm like, oh, they're about to call my name. Only to be sitting there all day and they not come. I mean, people would be going to rec and they'd be like, dude, come on, let's go to rec. Like, nah, man, I got to visit. I'm not coming out there. I'm staying in, because I didn't want to go outside and get all sweaty or dirty or whatever, right? If you're out on the rec yard in the summertime in Florida or anytime, really, it's going to be hot outside. So I'd be like, nah, I'm not coming. They'd be like, dude, she's not coming. She always does this to you. Come out to rec. No, they're coming this time. And time after time after time, I never gave up hope, but every single time it broke my heart. I'd be like, oh my God, you got to be kidding. Not again. And like I said, if you can't make it, if you can't do whatever it is that they're asking of you, just tell them, I can't do it. I'm not going to be a visit. I don't have any money to send you. I can't pay any money on the telephone. I can't write you a letter for whatever. I don't have any pictures to send you. Just be honest about it. So that's what I had to tell you.
That's excellent advice. I met this girl at Visit that I became really good friends with, and now we stay in the hotel rooms together on our Visit weekends. And when things are running kind of slow, we'll joke with each other. We'll be like, all right, how many calls do you think that we have missed when we get back to the car later? Because we're not allowed to bring our cell phones into Visit. And she'll be like, oh, 6, 8. And it's pretty accurate because we're running a little bit slow. And everybody's minds go to the worst case scenario. So I can only imagine how intensified that was for you while you were sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And I always tell everybody, if you can't do this, be honest. You don't have to do this. Nobody's holding a gun to your head saying you need to do this bid with him. And so I really appreciate that advice from your perspective, because obviously you're a big boy. You can handle the fact that she's not able to do this with you. She's out there alone, whatever, but not stringing him along, I think, is excellent advice that I give all the time. So you just kind of back me up, which is great. Okay, really quick before you go, I'm going to post the links to where everybody can find you, but just tell everyone where they can find you.
So just search YouTube, Bryan, and that's with a Y, Bryan, Bruton, Bruton. You should be able to find me with just that. My name, Bryan Bruton. I changed my channel name. It was called Bounce Back, Life After Prison. So even if you put that, you'll probably still find it, but just search for Bryan Bruton.
Awesome. And I'll put the link, guys. Go follow Bryan's channel. I absolutely love watching your videos. You have a lot of really cool live videos. And I know the people that watch me love the lives. They love the interacting and all that stuff. So go over and follow Bryan. I cannot thank you enough for being here. All this information was really priceless for us because it's that look on the inside that we don't get and we're trying to kind of figure out and understand. So can't thank you enough. Please, you are welcome back on my channel anytime you'd like to come back.
Well, cool. I greatly appreciate it. It's been my pleasure. And much respect to you and all of your viewers. Thank you for watching. And hopefully people take something from this and learn something from it. And, you know, hopefully eventually through us putting out these videos, there comes that change that's going to help this broken system that we have. So thanks for giving me a voice on your channel.
Of course. Yeah. Have a great night.